weren't supposed to see me play with that. I'm sorry. Let's start the show. All right. Tonight, this is the last of what we thought was the only trilogy. Come to find out, it's only the last of the first trilogy. It once was called Revenge of the Jedi, but the Jedi don't believe in revenge. So we call it Return of the Jedi. And tonight I bring in regrets. Sir, how are you doing? I'm going to use the Force and translate. He said, I'm doing well. Look at Black Lightning, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., something, 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 Dark Side, something, 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 the Force. And now you can hear him too.
There it is.
Okay. Sir, how are you doing tonight? Tonight, I believe this might be your favorite movie, considering all the trees and plants we saw. I don't know.
Oh my God.
There you go. There you go. If you thought that he was exuberant in other episodes before, tonight he's beyond ecstatic. I'm going to bring in somebody else who has a starring role in this movie. I've been teasing this. As you know, we get celebrities on the show a lot. We had Nicolas Cage. I think Chrissy brought on Will Smith to trash his movie to his face. But tonight we have the Emperor himself. He's going by the executive consultant. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, actually.
Emperor, we can hear your Imperial Guard in the background.
Yeah, I know, and they're a loud bunch, but they're watching wrestling. However, you know what? I'm eager to talk about this movie. I can't wait to discuss it. Once we hear the synopsis, let's go right into it.
All right. Well, I didn't write the synopsis down. I haven't, to be fair, for these Star Wars. They're so well known. But if you are just seeing it for the third time, as I teased in the opening, this is the third of the original trilogy. This one we find in the beginning, Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, R2-D2, and C-3PO. They're tracking down Han Solo, who has been taken prisoner. We saw that at the end of Empire Strikes Back by Boba Fett, and he's been taken to Jabba's palace on Tatooine. So this is almost like a return home for Luke Skywalker. In fact, he even says that in the movie. They're able to rescue Han Solo, and they return to the Rebel base, and we find out that during this time, unbeknownst to everybody, the Empire has been building another Death Star. And arguably, they're getting better at it because it's going faster than it's ever taken before to construct. But nevertheless, they are halfway or three-quarters of the way done. And they devise a plan brought to them again through great sacrifice by the Bothans to destroy the Death Star. And as they assemble the fleet, Luke goes back to continue his training on Dagobah, and he realizes that his master teacher, Yoda, is no longer well. He's actually dying. And he tells him the only thing you lack to do is to face Vader, which is to say, to face your fear in order to become a true Jedi Knight. And so reluctantly, he faces off against Vader, who Yoda confirms is in fact his father, and he faces his fear. And therein lies the plot of Return of the Jedi, 1983. So I think we should start with the person who would have picked this movie had he seen it before because of his love for plants and flora, Mr. Regrets himself. Sir, what did you like about this movie? What were your thoughts?
I regret being uppity and and prejudging this movie because, yeah, I really, really would have been into this stuff. I really, really, really would have been into this stuff. And you see how you have a toy lightsaber?
Don't disrespect it like that. I built that.
Yeah, okay, no, but what I'm saying is, okay, I can use another word. You have a mock lightsaber. You have a representation of something that is in this movie.
That's very true.
Clean up, that's what I mean to say. Therefore, the fact that you have that means how influential this movie is. Therefore, what I am regretting is the fact that I missed out on so much pop culture. I missed out on so many references. Now I understand what people mean when they say that she looks like Jabba the Hutt. Now I understand this. Now I understand. And mind you, that is something, the reason I said that is because that's some place where a lot of people can relate. But this whole thing about father versus son, the story is just crazy. The fact that Luke is fighting Mufasa is insane. Like I like this right here is awesome. And mind you, because so much time has passed, I feel like watching this thing over and over again, more than anything, for just for the know-how for investments. Because the reality of the situation is that nowadays, oh my god, having original toys or an original stuff from this time from these people, woo, man, I have regrets. I missed out on so much. So yeah.
I understand. Emperor,
You guys, honestly, I really do. I really appreciate you guys. And you know what? Right at this moment, I'm acting like drunk Chris, but no, that's not what's going on. But that's
for those needing a reference, see our review of Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, I believe it was, for Drunk Chris on the show. Now, executive consultant, do you have any thoughts on this movie?
Yeah. So let me just go ahead and get right into it. Let's talk about some favorite scenes that I have in this movie. The favorite scene I had is when Darth Vader comes out of his ship on side this Death Star that's half full. And he had the dramatic interest. I thought it was really, really cool. I thought it was really, really funny that he told whoever was in charge, like, hey, be careful. The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am. That was funny coming from a guy who was just killing people just because of whatever the last movie, and was trying to do it in the first movie too. So I really like that scene. I like the whole Jabba the Hutt sequence that they had at the beginning of the movie. I thought it was a great way to begin. So I thought that was good. That was good scenes. Let's talk about some bad scenes. Here's some bad scenes. Darth Vader's fight against Luke Skywalker. Some people really liked it. That's when they started really speeding up a little bit. I wasn't a fan. Let me tell you why I wasn't a fan. And unfortunately, this might have been because I got a little spoiled by watching the sequels or prequels and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, Chris. Now, did you for reference? Did you see them prequel first and then this one?
No, I have not.
So
because I'm going by what I've seen from Darth Vader in the past, right?
I got you.
So when I see him how he was in the past, and this one, it's like, I wasn't a fan. I thought the Emperor was very good. I told you a little bit last week how I thought Darth Vader is one of the most iconic movie villains of all time. Emperor is right up there with him. The Emperor is so good. Spoiler alert for other movies. The Emperor is so good at his role and what he does. So please give the Emperor a lot of respect too. He's just an evil son of a gun. All of a sudden, the whole Luke and Leia thing being brother and sister, I thought was a little bit forced. Luke's having a conversation. I mean, Yoda's saying, "Hey, there's another. You have a twin sister." Oh, it has to be Leia because she's the only other. Seriously, it has to be Leia. And then all of a sudden, he's talking to Leia, and Leia is able to figure it out like that. Y'all didn't know any other time we are making out, but for some strange reason, now y'all know y'all brother and sister. And Han, who they've been going around talking about how much they love each other and all this other stuff. Now Han is like all jealous of Luke. Like, you love him, don't you? What? You're not making any sense. I was not a little happy with that. I was a little annoyed by the Ewoks. I'm not a fan of the Ewoks. I wasn't a fan of the whole forest sequence. That kind of annoyed me. I know you are Groot. I never care. I wasn't happy with that sequence. I thought the sequence was a little bit contrived. In my opinion, I'm looking at the rebellion. I'm looking at the Empire with all them Star Destroyers, which are huge, right? They're like the size of 4 cubes, only bigger, and not a cube. But I feel like they should have crushed the rebellion so much quicker than anything. I know they were just trying to hold off because the Emperor wanted to play games with the Death Star, but they lasted a lot longer than I feel like they should have, regardless of any of that. So that was a little bit contrived for me as well. Some lines that were good. That you hear about, the regrets up there talks about pop culture, release your anger. I can feel your anger, stuff like that the Emperor was saying, classic lines that you hear. They're in GIFs or GIFs or whatever you call them. They're memes. They're really good. Every time, if you're an instigator, which sometimes I can be, or a troll, and you really get under somebody's skin, you say it. You're like, I can feel your anger, come to the dark side, all that stuff. So this movie is great for those classic lines, and I really do like that, and I really do appreciate that. So shout out to Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I think it wrapped up the storyline kind of nicely until we found out it didn't. But I think it wrapped up the storyline kind of nicely. However, and I'll talk more and get more into detail about final thoughts, but I never thought it was as good as the second one, definitely, nor even the first one.
I see what you're saying. I'm gonna agree, and I'm gonna agree with some points. I can understand why he doesn't talking about Chris, why he doesn't like some other parts with relation to seeing a younger Anakin. And that's why I really suggested behind the scenes to Vic to not watch them in chronological order, meaning episode 1, 2, and 3, because I knew that when in the original trilogy, their fighting style was really like European knights with the longsword and broadswords, right? Whereas in the prequel trilogy, they're really like samurai, with katana, and it's much more faster and smoother, Um, and if he had have seen that, I imagine it would have been kind of jarring to see them go back to, like, as Chris says, why is this guy suddenly like a geriatric? But to be fair to the movie, in context, he's been in this suit that's been crippling him for years. It's been like 30 something years since he was actually Anakin Skywalker. And he is a decrepit older man. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say anything about age, but he is literally falling apart. And we see that in this movie where Vader is unmasked for the first time for us. We got a tease of that in Empire Strikes Back. So if I want to, in universe, give it a pass, that is my rationale for that, in that the suit is not a state-of-the-art suit, especially since we know the technology that the Empire has. It was a suit designed to give pain because pain fuels the dark side. But it is, as a moviegoer, it is like, wow, we haven't seen the Jedi do anything. Vic really is in for a treat. And I would say, if anything, like he says, I'm jealous of us. I'm jealous for him to be able to go into the next movie and really see the Jedi, not even in their heyday, but when the Jedi were all throughout the galaxy. So he's in for a treat, and you are too if you haven't seen that. So, but I agree with Chris and the point that he made with that. I want to give another shout out to the special effects. I've been talking about that throughout these 3 movies that we've been covering so far. There's a sequence when Luke is on Endor and he's going to meet Vader, and Vader's ship is coming down from his super Star Destroyer, and you see an AT-AT. We first saw them in Empire Strikes Back, the 4-legged all-terrain vehicles, I'll call them, right? They're called AT-ATs or AT-ATs, right? And it's walking through the forest, right? And then on the raised platform is where Vader's ship lies. And in the background, you have like a matte painting of like a satellite, and the way they do the lights blinking on the satellite, even though it's a matte painting. For something that's done practically, I just have to, again, it's so beautifully done. This movie is very, very beautiful, even though it's heavily forested and everything. I'm not saying that forests aren't beautiful. The way they do the night shoots and some of the sequences, really, really lush, really, really beautiful. And to see that the I'm going to say 3-dimensional, but you understand what I mean. To see in the foreground the AT-AT, to see then the platform in the second part, and then to see the satellite map painting in the back as Vader's ship comes down and lands. Just love that. The conversation that he has with Luke, and he's saying to him, he's not disagreeing with Luke that he's conflicted, but he's saying, you don't understand the power of the dark side, the hold it has on me, the temptation that it gives. And then, as Chris pointed out, to see the conversation that the Emperor has with him. He doesn't come in there like a mustache twirling villain. He comes in there very seductive. This is what I've done to your friends, the ones that you care about. I know all about your plans. I've seen it. Establishing his power, then saying there's no hope for them. Lose your hope. Something like Darkseid might say, right? In the Anti-Life equation. Then he says, and now I know you want to kill me, and I'm unarmed. This isn't what a Jedi does. You know that, right? So if you have all these anger issues and all these feelings and everything like that, you might as well come to me. You're already mine. I have your father, now I have you. It was a very effective sequence, and I did like the conversation before the duel with Luke and Vader, that Vader is sensing Luke's fear, and when Luke is having all that fear, all his thoughts are going all over the place, and Vader is able to pick up all of that. And you see the training and skill of Vader, and he's saying, "Oh, you're hiding something. Who is it? Who is it?" He's searching his mind. "Oh, it's your sister. You have a twin sister. That's okay. If I don't get you and you die here, your secret's already out. I'm going after her, and she has no training." And so when Luke jumps out of anger and defense of his sister, who would be vulnerable to that because Luke is the only one that was trained somewhat, right? And the music soars up and everything like that. It's just, to me, a beautiful sequence because Luke attacks out of rage. It's a train rage, but he attacks out of rage, and he gets the upper hand of his father because, again, the Sith, and if you haven't seen the prequels before, they'll get more into this in the prequels. Their power comes from their emotions, right? And just the release of their emotions, whereas the Jedi from their control of their emotions, right? And so he started to tap into that dark side force, and the Emperor is loving this because that's what he wants, to amp him up, amp him up, amp him up. And they have a callback, another callback, but there was an earlier callback in this movie, to when Vader cut off Luke's hand on Cloud City, and he cuts off his hand, and he sees the wiring, and he snaps out or he has a moment of clarity, and he looks at his own hand, and he realizes this thing or something similar probably happened to my father. And he made a decision, and that decision got him for the rest of his life. Again, a callback to a conversation that Master Yoda told him. He says, be careful, because once you go down that path, it will consume the rest of your fate. And he says, he throws away the saber. He said, I'd rather die than become what my father has become. And that's when he's able to say to the Emperor, you failed. I faced my fear. I faced my father. I'm a Jedi like my fathers before me. Again, calling out to the good in his father, right? And I love that. As Chris teased in the last episode, this trilogy is a story of the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. And we only learn that in this one. Of course, there are other things added. He says the whole twin sister thing. We can see that even if George had written that in the beginning, he didn't know he was going to be able to make these movies. So he said, well, let me add that in here. Let me do that here. And with reference to the Ewoks, mini Chewbacca's, I'm not a fan of that. You know me. I like all different types of movies and everything like that. But when it gets too kiddie after, especially coming off of something like Empire Strikes Back, I'm like, what is going on? I too find it hard to believe that even if the stormtroopers can't aim, you're telling me the Ewoks were able to defeat them? Clearly, they didn't need the help of the humans because they set up all those traps. They're the ones who did that. So why didn't they kick them off the Forest Moon before if they knew they were enemies before? Whatever. That's for the kids and to make George Lucas more money. I respect the hustle. But I did like the speeder chase on those bikes. I love that sequence as a kid. I like it now. Of course, obviously with the technology that we have, it look a lot different, but even coming up in the 90s, that looked good to me. And I always loved that sequence. I held up that saber before. That's actually my favorite saber, Luke's constructed lightsaber that he has. That's my favorite one out of all the sabers that we see. And second, we'll get to later on in a future movie, but that's actually my favorite, and that's why I held that one up, and that's why, as Vic says, I got that one because I grew up watching this movie. There's so many things about this movie that I like. Again, it's not my favorite, right? Empire Strikes Back is my favorite because it's such a character piece, and it's so much more serious in tone, and the stakes are higher. But this one is very, very good as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our opinions when it comes to this movie. When we come back, we're going to give you our final opinions and our final grades. Find out what we're reviewing next week as well as later this week, and a possible little tease coming up a little later. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
So what are you saying? You can't buy love? That's a bit of a cliche, don't you think?
It's absolutely true.
Well, let's test the cliche. Suppose I were to offer you $1 million for one night with your wife.
David, I think you want me to do it.
Why do you want to do it?
No. But I would.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back. What you're seeing right now, everybody knows by now. Everybody knows. Friday is the release of Mortal Kombat, the latest one in this updated series. If you had the pleasure, they actually released the first 7 minutes earlier on YouTube. It looks like it's going to be a good one. But we're going to be reviewing it. As soon as we have that information, we will bring that information to you. But we do know that Thursday at 9:30, we'll be right back here to review Indecent Proposal. I just watched it last night. And I'm really interested in talking about it. And of course, next Tuesday, we'll continue with our Star Wars coverage with Star Wars: The Phantom Menace right back here Tuesday at 9:30. Getting into the prequels now, but today we are reviewing Star Wars Return of the Jedi, the last one of the original series. And let's go ahead and start off with regrets. Regrets, your final thoughts.
Man, another thing that I regret is, well, at least, okay, I have a much better understanding now of the craze behind the Millennium Falcon. Man, if we were in the age of flying cars, I guarantee you somebody would be riding around with a Millennium Falcon. Because I've been hearing about this thing for the last 20 years, and I understand why now. And this is what I'm saying when I have regrets, because like I literally wish I would have seen it 10 years ago. I wish I would have seen it 20 years ago, because everything that's going on here and everything that's coming after the fact is it should be good. But the main reason why I have regrets is because I now live in a day and age where clearly movies are going to come in packs after the Marvel era. You know what I mean? The Marvel era shows you that you're going to have a whole set of movies that tells one big story. If I would have seen it back then, I wouldn't have known that, and I would have seen this in a much different light. I guarantee that. So clearly this movie gets a thumbs up, and I'm gonna watch it probably 2 or 3 more times.
As I said, I would be envious of Vic coming up, because even though Empire is my favorite movie, there are gems to be had with these prequels coming up, and I can't wait to see if he will be exuberant. I don't know that, but I think so. I think he'll like a lot of them. When I talk about lore, mythology, backstory, and information, and all that you get with the prequels, I really, really like that about them. Slight spoiler for what lays ahead. Again, Empire is my favorite for the reasons that I already laid out. But back in the day, this was it, right? 3 off, we're done. There was no, as Vic says, there was no Marvelized world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was no such thing as the prequels and everything like that. And then comes Jurassic Park, ironically brought to you by ILM, which George created. And then we have the special editions. The movies, the versions that we watch, I'm sure, are the special editions, right? So you have certain sequences that are added in there, sequences in Jabba's palace where the dancers are singing and everything like that, that are not in the original cut of the film. Not even the original that I've seen. I saw the one that they used to show on USA in the early 90s, right? And that was before the special edition that came out in 1997, preceding episode 1 in 99. Little Vic has a question or something?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
In the movie where they show Anakin next to
that is also another one. The Force Ghost of Anakin. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
What are you doing? Who's that? I just know because I've seen that face a billion times.
We'll get to that at a later point. I can't spoil that, but that's also something. And even we see that in Empire Strikes Back, when you first see the Emperor, they put in Ian McDermott. But originally it wasn't Ian McDermott. It was done by an actress who played the Emperor, and then they later on they brought Ian McDermott in, and they made him the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back. But originally it wasn't played by Ian McDermott. It was an actress playing the role of an Emperor with makeup on, and Ian McDermott didn't show up until actually Return of the Jedi. Years ago, 98. I went to, back then they called it MGM Studios, Disney MGM Studios, and they had a behind the scenes tour, and they had all these different ships from the different Disney movies and everything like that, and licenses and everything like that. If you're an 80s baby, you know this movie called Flight of the Navigator, even though I think it came out in like 1990 or something like that. That was one of the first ships. The ships actually looked like a T-1000, but it was just shaped like a almond shape, and it could change and everything like that. And they actually had the slave barge from Return of the Jedi, Jabba's slave barge, the one that Luke and Han are on, that they're handcuffed and everything like that. And I actually got to go up and jump the fence with permission and touch it. And that was very, very cool. It was a geeky moment. So different things like that. And they still have it, but now it's indoors. Before it was outdoors and you were going to like a little tram ride and everything like that. And now I guess it's Hollywood Studios, they call it. But that was really, really cool. I'm looking forward to the second batch of trilogy of films that we have. As I said, there's a lot to like, and there's a lot to detract from what to like, right? But when it hits, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm looking forward to seeing it through the eyes of Vic. Empire will always be my favorite, and then a little Revenge because there's a darkness in me, and then maybe also a Rogue. I teased that early. I give this movie thumbs up. And Caleb was in the comments. He was talking about something. What was Caleb talking about, huh? What was Caleb? Huh? Christy, you didn't think I came prepared, huh? Who was that? Is that my man Moses? Huh? From what movie?
Ladies and gentlemen, this movie got an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb.com. It was really highly rated. Came out 10 days after I was born, ironically. It was on a budget of $32.5 million. It made $475 million worldwide. 309 of it came from the United States alone. The movie had a lot of great points. It continued and it ended, we thought, a story that needed to be ended. And like I said, this franchise and genre changed the movie industry with the impact that still is being felt today, obviously. Now just transitioning more into the small screen. Darth Vader, Emperor are, if you were to name your top 20 villains in movie history, they have to be in there somehow. Both of them out of the same franchise. That's very, very impressive. Now, things I don't like about it. All right. In case you haven't paid attention, in case you have not heard, we have our own YouTube channel. UPR Entertainment has their own channel on YouTube. Make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to that. Look over at Vic, and you'll see where that is. That's how you find it, UPRE. Now, what I mean by that is we exclusively do our recasted segments on UPRE. Stay tuned for UPRE. This episode, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, recasted on that YouTube thing, which will be dropped probably sometime on Wednesday. Now, here's a teaser for that. Darth Vader is getting recasted. Why? Y'all might ask, why? How can you do that to Darth Vader after you're saying that? Well, this was the downside I had of the movie. Look at Darth Vader, Empire Strikes Back. Look at Vader in Return of the Jedi. Those are two different Vaders. I don't think it's the same Vader, in my opinion. The Vader in Empire Strikes Back was a badass. Going around force choking people, scaring everybody. He was a legit threat. This guy was very, very watered down. Yep. All of a sudden, he had a conscience. Did that guy in Empire Strikes Back look like he had a conscience? Emperor showed up. I've seen people do this all the time. Big and bad, but when the boss shows up, then all of a sudden he's neutered. Spoiler alert. He's neutered. I had a problem with this. I know where you're going with that. Right? So it kind of taken away a lot from the movie. I granted he wanted to be a good father, but you killed millions and millions of people. Death Star was like blowing up planets. They were trying to kill more people, right? Millions and millions of people. All of a sudden now, you decided that you wanted to pick up somebody who's electrifying and throw him down the shaft, and all of a sudden that's supposed to make up for everything? I think not. No. No. If I was deliberating, I would come back in about less than a day and say you're guilty on 3 different charges. Right? You're guilty on 3 different charges. 2 second degrees and 1 of manslaughter. Ladies and gentlemen, though, this week was great. I'm giving it a thumbs up. And I'm happy that we were reviewing this. I was a little upset about it first, but going back and I'm watching some movies, I'm saying, you know what, I actually did like it. I think it's watered down, but I actually did like it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching us here tonight. Vic, take us home.
All right. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. Love y'all.
That was short and sweet. Good night, ladies.